Dr. Collada.
Yeah, I hadn't been here. But the good news is Mimi's doing better, so that's all I can hope for.
Oh, good.
All right, it'll be 2 more minutes to get it up on the website. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right, Tracy, I sent that over to you.
Okay, as soon as I get it, I will put it up.
Darby, I'm letting Amy in as your guest.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I was wondering where she was.
Okay, the link is live.
Okay. All right. A meeting of the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners Occupational Therapy Advisory Committee pursuant to lawful notice is duly convened and called to order at 10:34 Friday, August 19th, 2022 via Zoom virtual video. Please know any comments by the public are welcome and can be emailed to publiccomment@lsbme.la.gov. Dr. Van, please confirm that you have verified the identity of all the tele and video conference participants.
I think that Jacinta has done that. Jacinta, you have done that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is the
Okay.
sound clear and audible to the public and those on the tele and video conference?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All
Yes, ma'am.
additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as we will no longer make additions to the agenda after the close of the public session. Members present today, we have myself, Ingrid, present, Brenda Martin, Kelly Brandon, Carolyn Murphy, Raylena Crooks, Kimberly Solari, Amy Lavriere, and our new member, Glenn Wallace. So I'd like to take a minute to welcome our new OTAC member. Unfortunately, Michelle Allison had to resign her seat on OTAC. So the board appointed Glenn Wallace, who we are very excited to have and was sworn in this morning. Glenn has been an OT for 7 years in the Baton Rouge area. He's practiced in acute, ICU, and now has a new role in mental health. Welcome, Glenn. And do you have any additional information to share?
No, only that it's closing up on 9, not 7.
Oh, good. I'm
So-
sorry. Okay.
That's okay. That's it. No, that's great. Happy to be here. Thankful to be a part of OTAC and excited to be able to contribute.
Great. Okay. Well, we actually have all members present today. We also have a guest, Amy Arbor, who was the past co-chair. Amy, you're here.
Hey, how are y'all?
Hello. How are you? Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Just here to listen for NBCOT. They have that new ambassador program, and so they ask us to just kind of go to a meeting and just see what the issues are for OTs in the state of Louisiana.
Okay, great. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Ingrid, I'm just going to confirm that we have a quorum.
We do, yes.
Okay, and then quickly before we get started, we're going to review the mission of OTAC, which the board has asked us to do at every meeting. The mission of OTAC is ultimately to protect the public, that is the consumers of occupational therapy, by regulating competent practice and upholding the standards set forth by the governing rules and regulations. Do you want to go into the executive session or should we review the minutes?
It's up to you. If you think you can dispose of the minutes really quickly, you can go ahead and take care of that. But if you were worried about being able to have everybody and take care of your executive session matters, it's strictly up to you.
Does anybody have a preference?
I think we'll be able to dispose of the minutes pretty quickly. So I think we ought to go ahead and do that.
Okay, great. So if everybody can, y'all should have received a copy through the link of the minutes from the meeting on February 11th, 2022, which was our last meeting. They were respectfully submitted by Ingrid. And if anyone has any changes, now would be the time to make note of those. Anyone see anything that needed to be changed or updated?
No.
No? Great. Ingrid, you nailed it.
So a motion to accept the minutes would be in order.
Correct. Yep. Would someone like to make a motion that the minutes be approved as written?
Move to
I will.
accept.
Is that Brenda?
It was Brenda that
Yeah.
motion. to
Okay.
accept.
Anyone second?
A second.
Who was that?
Kim.
Kim, thank you. Okay, great. Okay, we are going to have to move into an executive session. So, Amy, would you like me to inform you when we're out of it? So you can jump back on?
Sure, that's great. Just send me a text and I'll jump back on.
Okay, thank you. Guys, if for some reason I forget, will y'all please remind me when we finish?
Just
Thank
sit there. Are you just going to do the breakout room or are you going to shut the whole thing down?
I'm just gonna do the breakout room. I think we just had a motion in a second for the minutes. Can we just get a full vote?
Okay. Is that by all in favor?
Yeah, that'll work.
A,
Hey.
Yes.
Okay. Any opposed? Abstain?
So Amy, if you stay, oh, did she already drop off?
Yeah, she
dropped
went to
off.
the waiting room.
No, you're going to the meeting room. She dropped off the basic conversation.
So in the
No.
future, she can just stay on and she just watches a screen for a minute until we come back, but it's fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Well, but again, you're right now you're broadcasting, so you have to go into the meeting room to have the executive session.
That's right. So let's just send the move us to the breakout room.
Okay,
But you need a motion to go into executive session. I did not hear that.
okay. Would someone like to make a motion to break out into the executive session
I'll move, this is Ingrid, I'll move to a motion or to move into the breakout room
or executive session, correct?
for executive session.
Thank you. Anyone second?
A second, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Okay, give me 1 second and everybody will move over.
Okay. Everyone back? Jacinta, are we okay to resume? Can y'all hear me? Okay,
Yes, I can.
okay. Ingrid, are you back? Looks like we're lagging on some people coming back. Ingrid, you're back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No,
I was
that's okay.
writing minutes and didn't notice that I had to click the thing.
I'm just trying to wait to make sure we can start back.
The only
Yep,
thing-
you should be good to go. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that concludes the executive session. I would like to make a motion to accept the candidate and allow her to continue from her temporary license to her license.
A second.
Okay,
who-
who's next?
who
Kelly?
seconded? Kelly?
Kelly.
Okay, great. All right. Patricia, we all set for continuing?
Yep, you're good to go.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to go back to, so what's up next is an update from the laws and rule course and the exam with Ingrid and Susie Allen.
Is Susie didn't come, did she?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's all right. I'll go ahead and give just the update, which isn't that much. Susie Allen and I met on July 29th. The formal name of this course that initial applicants and eventually reapplicants will be taking is called the Laws and Rules course. All licensees across the board. This is what the new information is, that all licensed entities across LSBME will have to take a laws and rules course and quiz upon their first renewal of their license. That includes occupational therapy. So the board just passed that, I'm not sure when, but I guess recently, that all licensing entities, including us, will have to take a laws and rules course and quiz the first time they renew their license after their initial licensure. Now, of course, we would like to create verbiage in our rules saying that licensees have to take a laws and rules course and quiz every year in order to renew. But the new information is that all entities will have to, at least for the first renewal. For all licensed people who are already, all OT practitioners who are already licensed, the platform for the laws and rules course and quiz is going to be CE Broker. For new initial applicants who are trying to be licensed for the first time, they're creating a sister platform, because those folks won't be on CE Broker yet because they don't
Right.
have a license yet. So
Okay.
there's going to be a sister platform called Table Mesa that's going to be developed. That is not, I don't think that was fully on board yet, but Susie Allen's working on that.
Okay.
In terms of, for our purposes, because we want to have an annual quiz, Susie feels like we should craft a shorter course than the one that initial applicants have to take. It can also change each year if we want it to, if we, I'm sorry, yes, Dr. Colada?
When you finish, I just want to make a few comments.
Okay, great. Susie feels like we should craft a shorter course than the course that we have for initial applicants. And it can be changed every year. It on CE Broker, the quiz has to be changed manually as opposed to the old platform of Moodle, which I guess Susie Allen was able to have like a question bank, and with the flick of a switch, she could change up questions, and it's not going to be quite that easy on CE Broker, but she's up for it. If we have a new rule or something like that that passes that we definitely want to be on the update, or we feel like we're getting a lot of questions from OTs about a certain area of practice and we want that highlighted one year, then we can change up the course to reflect that and change up the quiz to reflect that. But she does think it should be shorter for our renewals. CE Broker does not give feedback on the actual text. That was a plus about the Moodle platform. In other words, if an applicant, a licensee got an answer wrong, then it would come up and tell them why it was wrong, so that it was educating the person at the same time, and then they could retake it and they knew more. On CE Broker, the final, I guess, quiz that you take that actually counts for something will not give you any feedback, but you can create what's called a pre-quiz, and the pre-quiz would give you feedback. And Susie feels like she would like us to force all applicants to take a pre-quiz so that they are educated on their wrong responses, and they have to take that at least once before being allowed to take the actual quiz. I didn't see a problem with that, but I can get feedback from y'all.
Okay.
I think that is everything from our meeting.
Dr. Collada, you have some questions?
Yeah, I just want to make a few clarifications. Number one, the laws and rules course will have to be taken after they get their license and before the first renewal, not before the initial license granting, okay? That way we don't have the problem that she was talking about going to Table Mesa. So that's where we're going. This is evolving as we understand what the capabilities are.
Okay.
So everybody will get the laws and rules course. And what we are doing with most of the other specialties, licensee groups, particularly the physicians, is we're making it optional to take for continuing education, free from the board. And you can take it as often as you want, once a year, every other year. We are not making it mandatory. For the physicians, some license classes want to take it mandatorily every year, every other year. And I think that's why Susie's suggesting maybe you can make it a little shorter. But basically, it's really up to you what you want to do in terms of, do you want somebody to take the laws and rules course every year, every other year? Do you want them to take a modified course? Do you want them to take the full course that everybody else would be taking? I think if most of you look at your practices, you've practiced good care and probably never read those rules until you got onto this committee, probably never read the law until you got on the committee. And I think the real issue is what's happened is that many of the actions against licensees, the licensees are throwing up the defense, well, I didn't know that that's what was in the rules, or I did not know that's what's in the law. And so that's why we're moving toward making sure everybody takes it and that they can have the opportunity to take it on a regular basis. And we are now changing the attestation forms additionally to say that they are now not only know it, but they can click to take the course if they want to take the course, but they're responsible for knowing what's in the laws and the rules. And so you will be seeing that happening in your licenses renewals probably by next year, if not sooner.
So
I just wanted
Dr.
to bring you up to speed on all that.
So just to clarify, this includes occupational therapy practitioners that new licensees, they're not going to be taking the course and quiz prior to getting licensed. They're going to be allowed to get licensed, but then on their first renewal, they have to pass the quiz.
If they have not passed the quiz, by the time they go to renew the license, they will be denied a renewal.
Got it.
And I think that's in a response to all of the accusations about how we delay the licensing. We're trying to speed up the licensing process. So you don't have to take that course before you get your license, but before you renew your license, you have to take it.
Okay.
Okay, anyone have any questions or comments? Ingrid, how long is the course that you're talking about, like modifying?
We actually haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay,
We haven't gotten to that. So
okay.
we,
I have
yeah.
I have maybe
Still
one
have to work through it.
suggestion to add.
Okay,
If you are concerned about somebody, like Dr. Collada brought up, saying that they didn't know about the course, but the course was offered to them as part of the renewal process, that could be maybe built in within the website during like the checkout to renew process. Maybe there's like a click box that says like I choose not to take the course at this time, or something like that like has on file for our purposes that the person denied to pursue the renewal course. If it becomes where I know that you said that you wanted to make it mandatory every single year, but if that's not something that we're able to do initially and it is optional, well, then it could be like it was shown that they chose that they, it could be like a mandatory click box where either you choose or choose not to take the laws and rules course at this time during the checkout or renewal process.
I hear you, but we are planning on pursuing that. It's going to be,
Okay.
there is a current laws and rules course and quiz that all the initial applicants take.
Okay.
We just need to sort of like downsize that for the annual renewals, and we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we are gonna be required, it's gonna be worth one CEU. Everyone will have to take the course and then pass the quiz each year. It'll also it'll be free, and it'll give them one CEU.
Okay.
And part of the reason for doing that too is, like Dr. Van said, just the awareness of the rules. And I think we all think it'll alleviate a lot of the questions that we get, that the answers are right there in our rules. So a lot of our time is spent just going to the rules, cut and pasting, and sending the answer to people who submit questions to us. So this will at least get them, like Dr. Van said, reading it, being aware of it, know where to find it, so that maybe that they go there first before contacting OTAC or LSMB. So.
Okay, sounds great.
Again, you, in response to Glenn's comment, you'll not have a checkoff to say you don't want to do it. You will actually have an affirmative statement that says, I acknowledge, I am aware of, and know what the rules say, and you can click on it to take the course if you want. But no longer will it be a defense that they can say I was not aware of the rules. So that will be coming up in your renewal. It's already been processed in some of the other license areas now, but it's not drafted down as far down as you all, because we take these in short steps.
Okay. Great. Ingrid, thank you for the update. I'm assuming that we need to keep it on the agenda for future meetings for updates.
Yes. Mhm,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Do we have any public comment?
Let me check to be sure. And I do not have any public comment at this time.
Okay, great. So we're going to move on to the dry needling update. I received an update from Randall Alford, who many of you know is he's been appointed to the AOTA Representative Assembly Committee. And they had their initial meeting a few days ago on August 16th. And they are writing the guidelines to submit to the RA for the council on practice over the next several months for the minimum standards or qualifications for dry needling and all new modalities to be approved through AOTA and at the state level. So their thinking in doing this is not only to address the dry needling, but to avoid having new rulings and new position papers and everything's made every time there's a new technology or modality that's considered beneficial to the OT practice. Their plan is to have their paper submitted for approval by December or January. Their next meeting is in September. And we just plan to continue to collaborate them as we approach that section of our rules and regs. So, you know, Randall and I are in contact pretty often just about the updates for this. So, you know, I'm just kind of making sure they're moving forward and just to catch Glenn up to date and remind everybody else that like, that's sort of our, when we get that, that was our plan and our deadline to have our rules and regs like in place at the dry needling or all, you know, adjunctive preparatory techniques, modalities, so that our rules will be ready to submit to the board as soon as we get that information. So that's kind of why we're pressing getting these rules and regs done, and then we can just put that information in as well as we collaborate with them. So they now have 10 states that have proposed rule change for dry needling for OT. And as the time gets closer, I will be working with Randall to look at some examples of the other states who have amended their rules to include dry needling and other modalities. Anyone have any questions or any further information that they have?
Can you just repeat the paper that this subcommittee that Randall is on is working on? What is that called?
The position statement?
It's a position statement, okay.
Yeah, it's a position statement on physical agents and mechanical modalities. I think they call it PM&M maybe, or physical agents and mechanical modalities.
Okay.
So it's like a position paper on dry needling, but then there, like one motion was for the physical agents modality, mechanical modalities. And the other one is a professional policy on the use of all adjunctive preparatory techniques to include dry needling. So Randall's on the one that would include the dry needling. I don't know how they're breaking them into two, but, or maybe they're combining them. It sounds like they're combining them, but Randall wasn't, I didn't get clarification. But basically their goal is to have it approved by December or January of this year.
By the AOTA.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm not sure that y'all aware, this is just to kind of give y'all an update if many of y'all saw. So there's been a subcommittee. I don't know if it's actually a committee, but there's a group for hand therapists through LOTA that have been in contact with us, Dr. Van, asking us about the status of dry needling. Randall's a part of that group, and Ingrid and I both were trying to make it to that meeting and both were unable to. But basically we have been in constant contact with them to let them know that, you know, as of now, OTs are not allowed to do dry needling, but that we are in the process of looking and amending our rules and regs in collaboration with AOTA. So that's where we are on the dry needling. No comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, and do we have any public comment on the dry needling?
Second again, and no, ma'am, no public comments. Just no, check. Sometimes it gets to junk. Give me a second to double check.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
ma'am, no public comments at all.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to new business. And this is where we are going to ask everyone to pull up the document so Ingrid and I submitted let's see. Down. If you see the one, I'm trying to find the page number for y'all. Page 41, is that correct?
I'm still scrolling down.
Okay, I think it's 41. And I'm just gonna just remind y'all that we agreed to designate 1 hour per meeting to reviewing and revising the rules and regulations. So we'll mark the time and we'll try to stay on task with that. And I'm gonna give you sort of the code so that you'll know what the colors mean. So the things that you see in red are suggestions that Ingrid and I have made just to try to make this more time efficient. But it's definitely up for discussion. It's just suggestions. If it's highlighted in yellow, that is where we felt like we needed more information from either AOTA or Dr. Van or maybe somebody on the committee. So again, everything's open to suggestions and comments. Anything that you see in green were changes that were already adopted and voted on by OTAC. So if we, just for history, because this document we've been working on for a few years. So that's how we are there. So is everybody up to par on page 41, if I'm correct, of the document?
Yes, but Darby, can you tell me again? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What did you say the highlighted yellow was?
Yellow just means that we felt like we needed more information, like maybe
Okay.
to go to somebody that's, in academics or an AOTA position paper, a question for Dr. Van. We needed some history on, but basically we were like, we need some more information.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, yeah. All right, so we're gonna mark the time as approximately 11:14, 11:15-ish. And we're gonna go through and look at, I just wanna make sure and get a confirmation that everybody's on page 48 and joining the fun for this.
For page 41.
41, I'm sorry, not 48. We're good to go. All right, so basically the section of 171, the scope of the subchapter, there weren't anything that's really just authority note and historical notes. So for the license and permits, we felt like it was important to put the word initial in there because it does change things for after initial. So that's really just sort of a clarification thing. And then we confirmed with licensing that the fee is still $150 and $100 for assistance and $50 for the temporary permit. Then for the annual renewal, we didn't really have anything. I'll just kind of read through that. Please, let's make this fluid. If I'm going too fast, let me know. If we need to speed up, let me know. Just because we didn't see a change doesn't mean somebody else doesn't see one. So, I don't want to rush through this, but I also don't want y'all sitting there because I know you can read.
Dr. Van, did you have something?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to say that while I don't mind that you codify those fees in the rules, I need to tell you that the board is undertaking a comprehensive review of all of our fees. I will tell you that on average, there's been a 67% increase in costs, inflation, I should say, since these fees were set for you all. I do not know what the board is going to do. The board may authorize us to ask to raise the fees, maybe 20%. I'm not asking them to raise them beyond that. They may say 15%. We have dipped into reserves last couple of years. We budgeting actually, we're suspending reserves this year as well. I think the board is concerned about our economic viability, and this 67% inflation rate does not include this year at all. So it may be worse when we look at the end of the year, but I do think you can expect that there may be some increases on all of these fees in the not too distant future. So I just want you to understand that it may change as we're going through this process.
Dr. Van, do you recommend that we not state what the fees are in the rules, but
I
instead?
don't care because you can put them wherever you want. Okay. It's okay with me. It's easier to change the fees and the rules, but we still have to go through the legislature, and we're going to go with a package if we go. So it's going to be a package of things. And I just don't want you to think if you set them in the rules today, the board's not going to change them. I want you to know that this is potentially, these fees are going to change because we cannot continue to sustain these kind of inflationary pressures and operations in the agency without some degree of fee increase. And we realize that the law of large numbers keeps us from raising everybody to 67% because we do have some reserves and we do have some assets. But what we're going to need to do is at least look at some moderate increase over the next couple of years. And I just want to tell you that right now. That I want to be fair and open with you so that when you see this come back and it has a different number, it's not that we didn't want to do it. So we already agreed to have it done. So you'll just know what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking that we probably just need to word it to where that it's fluid. And just remember, if our rules and regs say something, but the legislation passes something, then that trumps our rule. So there are things that are happening that technically aren't in our rules because they haven't been updated. So just for clarification on that. But I mean, what are y'all's thoughts on just taking it out that it just says like a fee shall be payable to the board and we don't name it?
I agree. Or if there were any words, something like according to the current applicable schedule or
Fee
something.
schedule.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's good wording. Okay.
You could word it to send people to where the fees are going to be listed, like the fees will be disclosed on the website. Or I mean, if you're concerned about that, maybe that's a solution.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what about the annual renewal?
I would need to include that, not to mention including the reinstatement of license.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of highlight those areas and then that way we can put the wording in of, according to the fee schedule.
Yeah.
That's for section 175 for B, A, B, and C. They have amounts in all of those.
It's actually section 173, 175, and 177.
Yeah, all of those.
So in the laws, when it says it's not to exceed $25, are we just leaving it at that because we're not opening that up?
Does it say that in the laws?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not opening that up right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until several years ago that it was part of an assignment and they were all coming back with that number. And I'm thinking, where did you get that? And that's where.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would require opening up the Practice Act.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going there for multiple reasons. Okay. So basically, if y'all are on the reinstatement of the license, you'll see that we added some things that talk about like additional fees to be determined by the board. So this would include late fees and other fees. And then I think we need to word it so that it's per the fee schedule again.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So are we for those sections?
Should we take an actual sort of vote to agree about that, changing the wording to the, removing all specific fees and substituting it with according to a current applicable fee schedule, like, should we vote to approve each section as we go? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, that's probably better. I mean, I think that's a little bit more specific than just doing all of them and then taking one
Yeah.
big, huge thing. So someone wants to make a motion for changing the wording to include the fee schedule and take out the specific dollar amount, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to remove the specific dollar amounts and refer the applicant to the fee schedule.
Thank you, Carolyn. Can someone second?
I'll second it. This is Brenda.
Thank you. Okay, section 1 done. Yay. All right, now on to the next section, which would be the scope of chapter and the definitions. So the definitions, from what we found, were usually included in later parts to refer to. So, you know, there's the applicant, the application. We felt like pretty much a lot of these were necessary and felt like, you know, would be important to keep. The good moral character, license, I mean, pretty straightforward. It talks about the Practice Act and includes whether or not it would be amended or supplemented. And BCOT is defined in there. And then if everybody's up to there, then we can discuss the occupational therapist and occupational therapy. Just know that occupational therapy assistant is down below, in case you're wondering if that's not, why that's not included under occupational therapist.
So we got this definition of occupational therapy that you see in red came from the recent AOTA recommendation for specifically for licensing bodies. This is their recommendation of the definition of OT for licensing bodies in red.
So again, it does not mean that we have to keep this or that we can't change it, but this is, and we put the source sort of at the bottom of it. But, you know, just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with this, or if they have other suggestions, we are open to them.
I think it looks good.
That's it. That one looks good.
Okay. I mean, again, we felt like using our resources was way better than coming up with our own, and that way it was comprehensive, and we have a source for people to go to in case they question it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the consistency is good.
Yeah. Okay. So then the next one would be the occupational therapy assistant. Again, Ingrid, we got this from a different source, correct?
I think we just reworded the current one. Let's see.
Well, we put the AOTA 2015A underneath it. So I think that was the most updated one that was provided.
Wait, no, yes, I had moved on. I thought you were moving on to occupational therapy assistant.
I am.
Okay. Oh, I see 2015. Mhm. Yes, that's right. We got that from the AOTA. Yeah.
So
Definition for
the
OT.
occupational therapy assistant, we reworded. The occupational therapy practitioner,
Right.
we added because that was not in our current definitions,
Right.
but it's referred to later in the document, and it's also now included in AOTA's documents. So it just means, it clarifies that if you refer to a practitioner, it can be the OT or the OT assistant. because we will see later in the meeting that that is something that when it just says occupational therapist, people question whether or not it also includes the assistants. But from here on out, this would mean that if we refer to a practitioner, it could be either or both. Okay, and then the last definition was just like person. So because that was previously in the definition, we didn't feel like it needed any change.
It's looked great.
Okay, so as long as everybody's okay with that, we'll take a motion to amend the definitions to be consistent with the AOTA official documents.
And Madam Chair, you have no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Do I need to do that for each section, Dr. Van?
It's probably better anytime before you take a vote to
Gotcha.
ask that.
Okay, good point. All right, would someone like to make a motion?
This is Raylena. I'll make a motion to keep the language consistent with AOTA.
And I'll second it, Amy.
Okay, thank you guys. That's for the definition part.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Amy.
Amy, thank you.
All right, so if y'all want to scroll down for the qualifications for license. So this would be talking about, this is where we just included the occupational therapy practitioner. Just kind of read that and give us your thoughts. We felt like the strikeout part was redundant.
Looks good.
Okay. Okay, to scroll down to qualifications for licensing. So this is just basically saying who's eligible for a license. This talks about that good moral character that was referred to earlier in the definitions. These are really things that I'm assuming were coming from the board. Have to be a citizen, complete the fieldwork experience. And this also kind of, I think, is this the part where it's just saying that we have to sit for the exam, but it does not state that we have to continue the registration through NBCOT.
I'm sorry, where are we?
Okay, we're right at qualifications for license, section 1907.
Oh,
I think it's page 3 at the bottom if we're all.
okay. So was there a change? I didn't see red or.
There's no change.
There's no change. I'm just
okay.
kind of like giving you the history of all that. Yeah,
Okay,
there's no
okay.
change. I think most of this probably came from the board. But you know, there was nothing we saw that needed change. But again, like if you feel like there is something that brings up a question or needs clarification, now would be the time to speak. Just let me know when y'all finish section 1907 for the qualifications. Okay, yeah, ready to move on. So section 1909, which is the waiver of examination, we might want to consider taking out where it says occupational therapist or occupational therapy assistant and putting in the occupational therapy practitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just missed that. Sorry for the delay. I'm trying to keep up with all the changes and
I'm
Um,
writing them down. I'll be writing them down too.
okay, yeah, okay, so,
So I guess we just need to,
that would be the only change.
move or have a motion just to change the, 1909 to be occupational therapy practitioner and 1905 to be occupational therapy practitioner.
Yeah, let's see, do we have any public comment before we get the motion?
Just checking, madam. None at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so if someone like to make a motion to revise the wording under subchapter B.
I make a motion to change the wording in subchapter B.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Anyone like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, let's move to subchapter C. So this section is under the application. So again, under purpose and scope. We were just clarifying, adding the practitioner. And you can move on to the application procedure.
As you can see under application procedure, we didn't feel like there were any changes needed.
Yeah, there is like a weird little highlight under D, but that's just,
Yeah, I think that's a mistake.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Can I ask something? And
Of course.
I'm a little bit behind, but
Nope.
on the citizenship part,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to educate myself on this more, but how does this affect DACA recipients?
How does this affect what? I'm sorry.
DACA recipients?
I'm not sure. Dr. Van, would you know? Dr. Van?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm not sure what DACA means. Can you tell me what that term
That's
of
the-
art means?
Dreamers
Yeah, deferred action for childhood arrivals. So people that came here
as children.
as children that aren't legal and aren't on a path to citizenship. And I'm trying to get more familiar with it too, only because I've had experience with it lately. So I just didn't know.
At the present time, all of our license classes are required to have a valid permit to live and work in the United States. We don't care if it's a green card. We don't care if it's a citizenship paper. We don't care if it's a permit. Some people come in and train on training permits, but there are other types of visas that allow them to work and reside permanently in the United States. So that's why we use either a citizen or have a permit to live and work in the United States.
Okay, I'm trying to see it. Okay.
So Kelly, you're experiencing, are they like students that are coming in or?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, the student training would be up to the school,
right.
but we would not be able to license them, quite frankly. And that would be an unfortunate situation if the schools didn't tell them that.
So they can, if they, okay, I'm reading on it. So the program for DACA requires that they get a work permit, but it has to be renewed every 2 years. So would that qualify for a licensure?
Are they able to live and work in the United, is it a permit to live and work in the United States?
Yes, it just
If
has to
they
be
have
renewed.
that, if they have that, they can get a license.
Okay,
That's
But if
up
they
in,
don't have that, they can't have a license. So let's say they have it today, they get a license. 2 years later, they don't renew it, they don't have a license.
okay.
that's up in section 1907.
Thank you. I was going back and trying to find it and was having trouble. Right, Kelly, that's the one that we were talking about when you said you were a little behind, that it's a citizen of the United States or possess a valid and current legal authority to reside and work in the US.
Yeah, 1907 A2.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I just want to make sure.
So we're clear on that? We don't need to
Yep.
amend the motion or anything?
Mm.
Okay,
Come in.
all right, so now so Kelly, do you need a minute to catch up to 1913?
I'm good.
Okay, all right. So 1913, we didn't see anything that would needed changing for the application procedure because it pretty much hasn't changed. And some of this, like we don't really even are part of like the photograph and the information and the documents.
No,
So
we are not requiring a lot of photographs. We could probably take that out the rules.
number 2, under C, a recent photograph of the applicant.
I mean, yes, we're not requiring that on most licensing now. So if you want
Okay.
to take that out the rules, now's a good time to take it out.
Okay. Thank you.
I got it written down.
And then if you see in number F, it just talks about accompanied by the applicable fee. So that language may be what we need.
I see that.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna move on.
Actually, on letter F there, it says applicable fee as provided in chapter 1 of these rules. And so actually we would need to strike the words as provided in chapter 1 of these rules.
Because we're not given a specific fee, you mean? Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And it still has the photograph on the website. So does that need to be changed or taken off?
Well, we are not requiring it, but yes, we'll take it off the website. We are not, we've not been asking, if they don't send it, we still process it, what's going
Okay.
on right now.
Okay,
Because it's in the rules, but we don't hold up an application for a photograph anymore.
Okay.
good to know. Okay, so we're gonna strike that in F. We're gonna strike 2 for the photograph. And then we'll move on to 1915. So,
I don't see, we must have accidentally, I don't have the strikeout and I don't, so now we don't know what it used to say.
wait, I think I have the original right here. I think it was highlighted just to make sure that, I actually in my notes had that that was to be striked out. A possible strikeout, like, do we include that with the part that continues with each physician, blah, blah, blah. So let's just read through that and kind of get a reference.
What is it that you're trying to change or adjust in 1915? What is the concern?
I think under, I think the stuff in red is actually the current language, and I don't know why it's in red. The strikeout comes right after the yellow part. I guess, but it's also yellow because we're questioning it, where it says that the applicant, when they're submitting to the board, that they might have to provide any healthcare practitioner with whom the applicant has consulted or seen for a diagnosis or treatment. I think that was our question on whether that's being done or whether that should be done.
An option that the board, that is an option that the board has that I think probably the legals would talk to us about. It basically is saying that these are the people we have permission to get information from. You are granting us the permission to get this information so that we can do the best job at learning all about you that we need to Because if there's a question, we may want to check some of these things. I'm not saying that they're going to do it on everybody, but again, it's really, this gives us the permission to do these kinds of, to get this kind of information. Now, if the legal eagles are comfortable striking it out, I'm sure they'll tell us afterwards, but you put in what you want, that's what this is about. And then the drafters will say, we can't do that, or yes, we can, or whatever. But again, ultimately, the board will make the final decision. We will put this in a document that has what you want in it. Then you'll approve that, and then we'll go to the board, and the board will say yes or no, or maybe so, whatever they want to do on each of these items.
So Ingrid, just so y'all know, the part that's in red that says the educational institution at which the applicant has matriculated is currently in the document. So that should technically be back.
I don't know why we put that in red, because that's.
We added with a degree pertaining to occupational therapy.
That's what we added.
So because we felt like it was like by the degree, and so each state or federal agency, like taking out those words would just mean the degree pertaining to occupational therapy. So, I mean, I think it was just sort of to consolidate that.
I don't know why we have this stuff in yellow about the state and federal agencies, because we do potentially want to know about their work history, an applicant coming from another state, if they've had a problem with having a license revoked in another state, we would want to know that. So I don't know why we have that in yellow.
Okay, so we'll just take that out in yellow, and then we, per Dr. Van's suggestion, probably should not strike out the.
I guess I have just a personal problem with like wondering why we would need people's health information, their private health information, and making a decision about whether they'd be a competent occupational therapist.
Well, there is one of the things on there that says, like, if you've ever been deemed like not able to work, you know, like due to an injury or a diagnosis, you know, like, for example, like if you have a concussion and you're not of sound mind to work. So then you have to get like an affidavit saying like, yes, I was restricted from work by a physician, but I've been released. So I assume, Dr. Van, like that's kind of what it was referring to.
That and also any other subsequent, for example, should a physical therapist who's had hemiparesis be able to work? Should they be working? Should they be licensed? You know, there's a number of things: automobile accidents, quadriplegia, paraplegia, hemiparesis, and I think those have to be individualized. And this gives the board the right to do that individualization and evaluation. Because obviously, if they're doing some work that they can continue to do from a wheelchair, then we're not going to say they can't do it. But maybe that they shouldn't be doing something that they have to be standing and working from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess the question would be, if we keep all that, do we keep with the degree pertaining to occupational therapy?
So the way that the current language reads is that the board has the right to look at any of the schools that the applicant went to.
Yeah, and even like a membership to organizations, professional organization, or any kind of membership.
I guess we should probably leave that alone based on what was already created.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So you want to take out with the degree pertaining to occupational therapy as well? Okay. Okay. So we're going to leave that alone and then move on to B, which we, again, it was really, this is more, I guess, the physical or mental exam. Like if they feel that it's appropriate, they can recommend getting an exam. And then C really refers to releasing the information. So I'm assuming that this would also apply. So like if someone's turned in for an ethics question, then we could also have them get a physical or mental exam or recommend anything like that.
No. That disciplinary issue, the disciplinary issue is different. And this is really the front end. The disciplinary issue is at the time of the action and the complaint. So this is different.
This is just for application because that's what it's under. Okay. All right. So really, other than changing the occupational therapy practitioner in A under 1911, there any other changes that anyone see or recommend?
It's been a while since I've had to apply in Louisiana, but what about the fingerprinting that has to be done? Is that somewhere else?
Well, that's all part of the requirement for criminal background check.
Okay.
That state law requires us to do.
Okay.
And I know I can tell you that is the biggest delay we face in most applications.
Okay.
But I have no way around that because that's a law.
No, I just didn't know if that needed to be in there somewhere.
I think under application procedure 1913 C number 3, it basically kind of has like this broad verbiage, such other information and documentation as the board may require. So I think it's good to leave it like that because as the board changes or
right.
That's a good point, Kim.
I don't know. I was just trying to look it up. Is the Louisiana Department of Health and Human Resources still that name, or did they take that human resources out?
You're talking about
it's now named LDH.
LDH or A?
Yeah, it's LDH.
so Carolyn might be right that it's now just called the Louisiana Department of Health.
Correct.
So that's under C.
That was,
Almost at the end.
15C at the end, yeah. All right, I got that written down.
Okay. So that would be the only change under 1915. And the strike out under 1913.
It's also noted in the historical note underneath that.
Oh, I see it.
But we can't change that though, right? Because that would be what it was called back then.
Yeah. I think we can only change it in the section. Okay. All right. So is there any public comment under the section 1911, 1913, or 1915, Dr. Van?
Hang on, 1911, 1913.
And 1915.
I think, if y'all are comfortable with the way you have it, we can live with just about all of it. I would tell you, leave in that strikeout part. But if you want to leave, you can propose it to be struck out. And that's what I want you to know. The legal eagles will then decide, and you'll get it back. It will look like it's supposed to look. You'll approve it, then we'll submit it to the board. And then the board's going to analyze it and say, well, we want to put that back in. Or they're going to say, leave it out.
Yeah, we're going to put it back in, Dr. Van. We're going to put it back in. So the only changes in that section are basically to add the word occupational therapy practitioner, remove the recent photo requirement, and change LDHH to LDH.
And under F, you have remove as provided in chapter 1 of these rules because it states the fees.
So, so we're just checking to see if anyone has a public comment about those changes. guess we could vote on it then.
Yeah, okay. So we just need a motion to make the proposed changes for these sections with the addition of the OT practitioner and the recommended 3 strikeouts.
I'll motion to make those changes.
Okay, I'll second it. Darby? Okay, so now we're under subchapter D, under examination.
You kind of you have to actually have everybody vote though.
Like, all in favor?
Right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kim.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And anyone abstain? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Patricia.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, under subchapter D for the examination, we have the beginning, I don't see any changes. Eligibility for exam, that's just talking about who's eligible. I don't think any of that is changed. So the only thing we felt was like replacing the word occupational therapy and occupational therapy assistant for occupational therapy practitioner under 1921.
Does anybody see anything else that they feel like needs to be changed?
No.
1935 talks about,
The situation we just had, yeah.
yeah, so,
In general, do we all agree that the idea of the 4 times, is a good point at which to review an applicant one-on-one?
I'm fine with 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody let me know when you're caught up and through 1935.
I'm caught up.
Okay. All right, any public comment on subchapter D, the examination, Dr. Van?
I'm not sure if he has someone in his office. Jacinta, do you have access to the public comment website?
Yes, I just checked. There's no public comments at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jacinta. Okay, so we just need a motion to make the changes to include occupational therapy practitioner in place of the assistant.
I move to make the change to the verbiage to include occupational therapy practitioners.
I second.
Thank you,
Kim.
Brenda. Kim? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Okay, anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, we can move on to subchapter E. So this is a temporary license.
Looks like we just have the same thing again, just changing it to OT practitioner. That's all that we found.
Yeah,
And again, this kind of gives us the guidance in times of, it was always helpful that we had so many of these things in the rules in the past when COVID hit us. It was a lot easier to operate because we had them in place. But it's also, it doesn't necessarily have to be a COVID situation. It could be a crisis of, there was a national OT meeting and, 70% of our OTs were at the meeting in New Orleans and they all came down with spinal meningitis. I mean, we could use it that situation. So there's lots of reasons. And I think it's our forefathers did a good job in putting that kind of stuff in. I would urge you to keep it in.
Okay, yeah. And then I would just ask those that are more familiar with the OT assistant guidelines to pay attention to section C under 1939, because it talks about the temporary license and with, number 2B for the 25% supervision of the weekly caseload.
We get a lot of questions about that.
I know you do. That's why.
A lot.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it.
So this is just people on a temporary license, right? And it's on-premise direction and immediate supervision. Are the questions really, what do those terms mean, or are they just not aware that it's 25% of the caseload?
The 25%, well, both, but the 25% can be difficult if they're in different places and they're trying to figure out, is it 25% in every place? Is it 25%? If I see 10 here and 8 here and 4 different OTs, how does that work out? It's just, I don't know, Carolyn, you probably have.
No, that's the same thing, because a lot of them are working like PRM in different places and trying to fulfill this. Yeah.
So would it be helpful to say like a 25% of the average weekly total caseload? Like, is there something we can do?
Regardless of number of settings or supervisors?
Like, what would be helpful for them and for us so that like it clarifies it so that it's not quite as gray, but it still allows the flexibility to change environments?
Or should it be time instead of caseload? Like the OT has to be supervised by a licensed OT for not less than 2 hours each week. Should the OT assistant be supervised by time rather than caseload percentage?
I mean, well,
I think you're going to have the same questions, even regardless of the measurement.
Okay, and then, okay, so it's saying that the OTA has to have 25% supervision, which is also the same that they have to have the first 2 years of a full license, right? So it's really not any different.
I don't even remember.
We're not there yet. I mean, if you want me to jump forward and look.
If you remember that, then that's probably correct. I don't know.
It's like 25 and then 10.
I think that's correct.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
What do you mean it doesn't make any sense? That
it doesn't make any sense that a temp licensed OTA has to have 25% of their caseload supervised, and a fully licensed OTA has to have 25% of their caseload supervised for a whole year.
2 years.
2 years. I would argue that's onerous. But
I think it's 2. It might be 1. I might be wrong.
Can I ask why you don't think it should be, why you think it should be different for the temps?
I think we're thinking it should be more, maybe, than what it would be for fully licensed, or no?
That's fine with me, but it's often, then we have to justify why we want it to be more.
Because they haven't passed the exam.
well, we already have it more for the occupational therapist, because the occupational therapist under a temp license has to be supervised 2 hours per week. When they're fully licensed, they don't have to be supervised at all. So we already, a fully licensed person should have less, I would think, supervision requirements on them than a temp licensed person, since they've not yet proven that a lot of the temp licensed people are working without having passed the NBCOT exam yet, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
And-
that's why we've got to supervise them more closely.
And when they have a regular license, it's still on-premise direction and immediate supervision? Like, is that where the flexibility comes when they get their regular license? Because it's not necessarily immediate supervision?
Supervision.
You're gonna excuse me for weighing in on this one, and I don't want to. I think that this section of temporary permit issue is really something that we need to clarify, because right now the board is really uneasy issuing a temporary license to somebody who hasn't had their criminal background check. Okay, they don't like to do that at all. Now, we did it during COVID because of the needs. We did it because at the same time, the people who were coming out of training programs, the state police were not doing fingerprints.
Yeah.
So they couldn't get them. So, but again, now that that's over, the board really likes people to have their fingerprints done and a criminal background check. And so this would, this can be evolved to whatever you want it to say. But I think the way you need to understand this is principally for us, operational in a situation of some sort of crisis or emergency, because the board really has sort of said, we don't want to issue temporary permits to people routinely if they don't have their criminal background checks.
That the
Unless
traditional
there's a reason that they can't get a criminal background check. That's really.
the traditional temporary license, the applicant has gone through all of the same requirements. So they would have their background check and fingerprinting done. It's just that they're awaiting the results of their exam. So under the emergency, I understand that they didn't, but your traditional temporary license with OTs and OTAs, they have that. They won't issue it without it.
In section 1939A, it says the board will issue the temp license to an applicant who's completed the academic requirements specified and has applied for and is waiting examination. But we don't have anything that clarifies that they've already done the criminal background check.
But based on what's been going on with the students, they don't get that temp license until all of the boxes are checked.
Right, because
So-
remember earlier in the application procedure, when it said like documents required, we thought that the background check would be included in that.
Yeah, they won't send it until that temp license until they've done all of that, and they're strictly waiting on the exam to get the full licensure. Now, I mean, we could reword it, but that's what's happening.
Okay. So
Let me ask this question. Is it your intention that if somebody fails the test and is taking it again, they could issue the temporary license?
They can apply for another extension. But then we have in there and then that's it. And then if they fail 4 times, then they have to come to us and apply to get the license if they pass after the 4th. So, I mean, there are things in place, I think, if they don't pass, that safeguard.
Okay. As long as you're comfortable with that, we'll present it to the board, and the board's gonna, and of course, I do hope the day we present it to the board that many of you will attend that meeting to go over their concerns and hear their concerns and answer their questions.
But Dr. Van, we're not actually changing any of the current wording on any of
Right.
this.
No, but I'm talking about overall for anything in this document that changes.
Right.
Yes, we know that, but we're not actually making any suggestions of changing any of that. Really, it was just the idea of under a temp license, the amount I guess in the past, and I kind of agree with it, that a person on a temp license should be supervised to some degree. And we've got it currently that an OT should be supervised 2 hours a week and an OTA 25% of their caseload. And that's what we're just trying to ascertain if that's still appropriate amounts.
So I have a question for Carolyn and Kelly. So when the confusion comes in, is it they're working PRN at several different settings? So they would have several different supervisors?
Yes. And, okay. So I've had a question of if, let's say they worked somewhere on Monday and Tuesday, and then somewhere else on Wednesday, somewhere else on Thursday, Friday, can they get all the 25% in one setting? Or does it have to be sprinkled
No,
out throughout the
would say no.
settings?
I think it
Because
has
that's
to be.
the average weekly caseload, but it's in 3, I mean, it's usually not in 5 different places, but let's say it was 3. Can it
Yeah,
be?
how is the Monday spot gonna know that,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
that was actually done? And are they performing the duties that need to be done?
Right.
Maybe if you include the language just at the end of the sentence to say regardless of setting.
Yeah, or we could just put in here for
Per
average
setting.
weekly caseload per setting.
Per setting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna play the devil's advocate on that and then ask if that's gonna be too onerous or if that's appropriate for protecting the public, or just want to make sure.
I know.
I definitely think it's protecting the public because
Yeah.
they could work in several different settings. Like we could be, you know, all over the place. And
I think, I'm sorry.
So what if it said, because it's saying that you have to be supervised by a licensed OT for not less than 25% of the average weekly caseload, like of each practitioner or something, so it wouldn't matter to me if I have someone on a temp permit and so does Kim. It's not my onus to be checking with Kim to see if she's doing the supervision or I'm doing it. The onus would be mine to supervise that person for 25% of my caseload that they're working on.
Well, the problem with that is our service competency or doesn't have to be completed by every supervising OT. Like we're telling them on one hand, on the service competency, that you can have multiple supervisors, but only one has to check you off, but they all have to be on it. So then we're going back and saying, except when you get supervision, they all have to check you off.
But I may not know that the temp is working at another facility.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do my 25% regardless.
And if they come in for 4 hours at one facility on a Monday and you say per supervisor, and that's the only time they come in, and you're expecting the OT to be there during one of those times, and that's unlikely.
Right. That's what I was going to say. The fact that, especially working in skilled nursing, the OT is not there all the time. So, you know, I think the problem that comes in is they're like, how do we figure this up? I don't know, you know, and I'm not there, and I'll just tell them, you just have to figure out what's 25%. But I don't understand. I mean, I guess I'm not sure exactly what to tell them, and they don't know what to do, as what it boils down to.
I mean, I've just told them if they see, you know, 20 patients, and 25% of those have to be supervised, the immediate.
That's what I would guess. The current wording, I would say exactly what you're saying. If they saw 20 patients in a week, then 5 of those needed to be supervised by an OT.
And then but then it went, because of the way that they're employed right now, the second question was, okay, well, that's spread over 3 different settings. So can I satisfy that requirement in one of them?
But doesn't that fall onto the supervising OT? Like if none of their, so like if I get them all the 25% done on Monday, but I go somewhere else on Tuesday and none are, like, how does that work with the OT that's supervising? Surely they have to supervise something.
Well, it could be indirect, I guess. I don't know.
Because doesn't this, I mean, ultimately this falls back on the OT, right? Like obviously for supervision. So,
For both.
I mean, hopefully that the supervising therapist does 25, you know what I mean? Like follows their rule, regardless of what other people doing to cover their requirements.
I don't know that they know.
Well,
Right,
again,
that's what I'm saying. I
We
mean,
cover that kind of thing in school briefly, but they probably don't know.
No.
And
I'll vouch for the fact that they don't know.
Exactly.
I'll say that the majority of us default to the OTAs to know what the OTAs are supposed to do.
Mhm.
But I will also say that I would feel uncomfortable with being legally responsible for somebody's actions as a professional if they are performing duties, like let's say that we do work the majority together on Monday, but then they're doing the other things in other places for the rest of the week. Like, I'm not comfortable signing off on somebody saying, working at 2 other places, but then I'm supposed to sign off that they are making good, safe, sound, professional decisions while working at 2 other employers. Right. I feel like that's unfair for me as the supervising occupational therapist, because I don't know how they, carry themselves, talk, like how they behave, like how they interact with patients, like in those other, or what they're doing for, like in terms of their job, what, or like all of those things when I can't. I mean, I'm sure, yes, indirectly we can have a phone call and I could be like, yeah, how'd it go at Skilled today? And they can say fine. But I mean, how am I supposed to know that, yeah, they're fine, other than them telling me that they're fine? I'm now supposed to, as the supervisor, supposed to call another OT or get in, like, just for my own peace of mind. Like, I personally would feel like, well, I got to call and talk to another OT to confirm that this person's actually telling me the truth. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like the ambiguity of that, or that falling back on me as the OT that needs to sign off on this person who's working somewhere else.
I mean, I think that the supervising OT that signs off on that 25 is
It would be my
literally
25.
just literally signing off on the 25% that they're supposed to have that they observe.
Well, then I'm sorry. I'm still trying to learn everyone's name and face, but the person who just spoke a little bit ago about using the language where it's 25% of a specific person's caseload, like not instead of an average weekly caseload. I feel like that eliminates that confusion, especially on both ends, because it's like per practitioner, like 25% of the supervising practitioner's caseload. I feel like that's a much better, that's way more clear. Yeah. And then if you go work somewhere else, if you're PRN somewhere else, that's fine. Like, you're free to go take as much extra other work somewhere else, but it better not, if it adds to the total amount of time that you're doing occupational therapy during the week, like, you can't exceed the amount of time that I need to be able to supervise you, and it's gonna be with me. Otherwise, I mean, I also don't know how I would police that also as the person who's going to sign off on them, because I can't tell them not to go get another PRN job somewhere else. So it's there. I guess that's a different issue, but as far as this specific thing, that's how I would prefer it. Me being the OT that has to sign off on this person, that makes me way more comfortable if we word it that way.
just 2 things. We are at an hour.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
That, and then I guess we all have a lot to think about with this. It feels like in terms of protecting the public, we kind of feel like potentially the temp licensed OTA should be, if I'm just gonna summarize, I guess, and you guys can disagree with me with what we've heard. There's some thoughts that the temp licensed OTA should have their, the 25% is per caseload with whichever OT started the case or is in charge of the case. Cases that might be better in terms of protecting the public. The other side of that is that the reality is that the occupational therapists and the occupational therapy assistants are frequently not assigned by their employer to be at the same location on the same day.
Right.
And so it could be a difficulty just in terms of the logistics and being able to meet this if we change it.
Right.
But our job is to protect the public, so we have to think about what's gonna be the thing that protects the public.
And we do not require that supervision form anymore, right? That went away a few years ago.
I don't see any form, any paperwork here in this section that's required.
Okay.
There's
Yeah,
nothing here.
We used to have it, but I think it's been gone for a while, but I just wanted to double check. And then there's no formal or consistent way for them to document that supervision, right? It's just however they want to do it. Like
I see that we do not have anything in this section about how you prove
Okay.
that you've had that supervision.
Okay.
So I guess the only time that would come up is if someone was like audited or in question.
I just want to make sure. That's what I tell them. It's like the IRS. You better be ready if it's there.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. So we're thinking 25% of the caseload per supervising occupational therapist.
As a possible change, we can come
Yeah.
back to that when we can all be thinking about it, look things up.
Yeah.
And talk to other people, and then we can
And
come
maybe
back and
talk
make.
to, some of the employers and see how they're doing it. Because maybe they have a way that they're ensuring that, because generally that's who is doing it, is making sure that the OT is available, knowing what the supervision requirements are. We just have to be real clear that we're explaining it correctly. But I can
Okay. Okay, so since we are to the time limit, can we just look at the next section and see if there's anything we need to earmark, and so we can get to subchapter F, and that's where we will continue.
You mean the section of 1940 about people who are waiting for their visa?
Yeah, yeah. Just so we can have like a clear cut delineation that
Right.
we're at subchapter F, but we're
So
gonna.
as you can see, Darby and I did not see anything under section 1940 that
Yeah.
we changing.
But it doesn't mean that you won't. So,
What page was that again? I'm sorry, I lost.
no,
it.
I know we've been flipping. It's like
46.
46.
46 on the thing, or 6 if you're looking at the individual pages.
What's H1?
An H-1 visa is, I think, your permit to work in this country.
Yes, it's usually given to people of exceptional need. So that, let's say there's a underserved area of OTs in Louisiana, and they can make a case to the federal government that bringing in OTs who have trained in the United States but don't have a permit to live and work, this would give them the permit to live and work.
Okay. Everybody caught up to subchapter F?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna, the only change that we agreed upon was in B, to change it to occupational therapy practitioner. And then for number 2, I just sort of highlighted it that we will come back for discussion there.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm going to trust Darby and Ingrid to take care of the paperwork on presenting this next time, all revised to subchapter F, and then we move on, all right?
correct. Well, we're gonna go back to this number 2.
And then we'll move on.
And then we'll move on, yeah. So even today, it's abbreviated because I didn't think we would get, I thought we'd get a little further, but not all the way, so, yeah.
Can I ask one more question about this? It's the 1939A,
Uh-huh,
where it says the temporary license shall be valid for 3 months or until the date of which the results are known and acted upon, whichever's longer. So even if they find out, if their temp license was good through, let's say, June 1st, and they found out in May that they did not pass, they still have until June 1st, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
mhm.
I thought it used to say sooner, but
Instead of the word longer. Yeah, we didn't change that, so. Yeah, the original document says longer. Okay, is there any public comments about that section?
Double check, just give me a
Chapter
second.
E. It's temporary license.
I have no public comments. Let me just look in the junk file in case it got shifted there.
Okay,
No, I have nothing.
okay, so since we're not making the changes to the whole section, we're just gonna hold off on the motion. And Ingrid and I are gonna make a note that this is where we stopped. And we, again, for the next meeting, we're just gonna do an hour for this and continue this process. So you can go back and answer that question or anything else, and then just be familiar with the next, make your own notes, make your suggestions, and then we'll continue. So before we move on to the next one, is everyone okay with a quick break?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
So-
what time is it? 12:25. Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we went a little bit over, not by much, 10 minutes, but the rest of the stuff it should be pretty quick, but I'm gonna say a 10-minute break. Is that fair? Or does anybody need more?
10's good.
Okay. So
I
I'll
have
see.
to disappear at 1 o'clock.
Okay. So you want to
Alright.
make it shorter?
Well, I just, give us a few minutes. Everybody probably got to go to the potty a little bit, so I'm
Yeah,
going to run to the
so-
restroom.
Okay, 12:34, we'll be back in action. Thank you. Glenn, you hanging in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the more tedious, kind of boring part.
No, it's fine. It's all important too. So
Yeah, we've been working on this document since I've been on the board, and I think I'm going on like 3 years now, 4 years. But different
I mean,
parts.
I know that it's a huge undertaking, and I know I'm like day one of sitting in on it. So I know that I mean, I don't know personally, but like this kind of stuff is important. And I know that it takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's just time. So like, some of the stuff
Yeah.
we voted on years ago, and luckily Dr. Van provides us a lot of guidance with how to do it effectively and not do it piece by piece. He suggested we revise everything and anything we wanted to, and then submit it to the board. And then it's still like this, the process after this is still crazy. Like it goes to the board, it goes to legal, it goes to publication, it goes to the legislature, then they have a hearing, and then we have to do comments. And then they may give us a new draft and it kind of starts all over. And then once we have the final notice, it goes back to comment. And then the governor has to sign it. So it's crazy.
Hey, I have a question. Is there
Sure.
anywhere, this is a little bit off topic, but any guidelines as far as, I know we have to keep our medical records for 7 years, but as far as, do we have to keep every booklet, testing booklet? Do y'all know? I've kind of researched. and can't
Testing
really-
booklet for what? Like
the Peabody booklet, the
Oh,
bot booklet.
I think it's any identifiable information.
Okay.
So like if it has their name and like birthday, that's my
Right.
understanding, unless it's supporting documents. You know what I mean? So like actually maybe the testing booklet, if you have the test scores documented in notes or documentation, you may be able to get rid of that, but you need to shred it instead of throw it away.
Right. Of course.
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
So stuff like that. I mean, I don't think it's written very clearly, honestly, and it varies. Some things are 5 and some things are 7. I see kind of both.
Darby, it's 12:34.
Yep. All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks for that quick tip.
Yeah. So let me see. Is everybody back? Yeah.
Bye.
Yep. Okay. So let's continue. We only have a few more things on here. So the next thing on the agenda is the CEU review transfer / CE broker for A code. So Ingrid has a comment and suggestion on this topic.
Let me share the screen, Darby.
I don't know that I can do that. I think that's
Co-host.
Jacinta.
Oh,
Just
just,
if you can agree.
can you
What
make,
do you need?
Jacinta, can you make me a co-host, Ingrid?
I just sent it to you.
You did, okay. Yep, you sure did, all right. So, can everybody see where it says continuing education related to the practice of occupational therapy?
Yeah.
Y'all see it? Okay. I just copied and pasted this from CE Broker this morning. This is the current verbiage on CE Broker. To be acceptable as qualified continuing professional ed, you have to meet these things. That's all of that is directly from our rules, our current rules. And then oddly, it implies that only if you do self-study or independent study, does it have to be sponsored or offered by NBCOT, AOTA, or an AOTA approved provider, which is a little bit misleading, because then when you click on the section called How to Report on CE Broker, then it tells you, you got to give the name of the course, who provided the course, and how was it approved. AOTA, LOTA, or AOTA approved provider. So the verbiage
wanted
under
to
the
say-
learn more section is a little misleading, because it almost makes it sound as if only an independent or self-study is going to be affected by the need to have an approval source. But aside from that, what I wanted to propose and find out then from Dr. Van if we could do this is I would like to simply add ACOT, an ACOT certified college or university to this list down here under the how to report section. Because under our current rules, anyone who's taking a post-professional OTD or post-professional bridge program to become an occupational therapist from an OT assistant, all their coursework meets all of these definitions that are in our current rules of what is acceptable. It has to have significant content related to OT, check. There has to be pre-established goals and objectives, check. It has to be presented by persons with knowledge, check. There's a system for verification, yes, the transcripts. And it has to be at least an hour in length, boom. So our current definition really already covers any post-professional OTD and bridge program work. And I think we get a lot of questions about this. So I think if we just added under the selection options, under AOTA, AOTA provider, LOTA, and then ACOT certified college or university. And that's what I want to propose.
I have a quick question about like just about this in general. Whenever you're seeing what is a CEU and what isn't. So sorry if I'm not trying to slow everything down. But what about the people who are pursuing like other types of like recognized degrees in the sense that it's like it's going to assist with your job as an occupational therapist? Like I got my master's of business administration, because sometimes that might be, that's what like the employer is pushing for you to be a manager, or if you're going to get your PhD, you know what I mean? Like in something related to the field, but it's not specifically the field. So
yeah, we have been through that, Glenn, and we have
okay.
all agreed that it has to be directly to the practice of occupational therapy.
Okay.
So an MBA would not count. Even though it would help their job as a manager, the point of continuing education for occupational therapy is to maintain your skills as an OT. So
Okay.
this would just be for people in post-professional programs, post-professional OTD, CODA's bridging to OT programs, or PhD in OT and those would all have to be, obviously those would all be from ACOT certified universities.
Okay.
And that verbiage of an ACOT certified university would delineate or remove the possibility that people attempt to use an MBA or other similar.
So I guess this is a question really for Dr. Van.
Yeah, is that something we could add, Dr. Van, to the CE broker?
I think that's fine. I think if you want to clarify it and make it, I've always been, make it as simple as you can and state that whatever course you take has to be approved by some national organization. And, we've tried to do that, but y'all historically wanted to try to be nice to the small guy, and the small guy ought to have his or her course approved as well. But I think we've made exceptions for it, but make it simple, make it clean, make it national things, because what we really want to be able to do is by saying that you're required to take this, make better practitioners out of all of us in the continuing education realm. And I think that's what we have we always so much last in the country on these things. And I think we want to try and get national standards for everything, so we can bring ourselves from maybe last to middle of the pack instead of the end of the pack.
And the good news is that this would be a national standard.
Yeah, and that's why I'm all for it. But you may want to take some of that other stuff out above to clarify the issue that you started with.
If I kind of do some draft verbiage, should I send it to you or to whom for changes on CE broker?
Send it to me.
Send it to you. Okay, I'll do that. All right, that's all I had on that.
Okay, great. Is there any public comment related to number
no,
two?
No public comment yet.
Okay. Dr. Van, in the sense of time, do you want me to jump to number 4? Because there's a direct question there about you with the chiropractors, or do you want me just to go through?
Yeah, jump please, because like I said, I got to disappear at 1 o'clock.
Okay, so we're going to temporarily skip number 3 and come back to it and go to number 4 under clarification. So we've gotten a lot of telehealth supervision guidelines regarding telehealth, and even to the sense that a lot of people aren't aware that under the Telehealth Act of 2015 for Louisiana, that OTAs are included in that. So we're getting questions like, can OT assistants do telehealth? And so, we've got clarification on that they are allowed to practice. We do need to address some things. Not obviously, are we going to take care of all this in today's meeting, but the definition of like face-to-face for, and again, recognizing that if intervention requires physical touch, then we can't do that via telehealth. And telehealth in general is not applicable if it requires physical contact, positioning, any kind of, modality or things that would have to be administered in person, or if it would reduce the quality of care. So we're going to discuss that. Our question really for Dr. Van is regarding to referrals. There was a question that was brought up of a doctor of osteopathy, and they are a medical doctor, so we can take that as from a referral source under our current rules and regs. But the question came up about a referral from a chiropractor, and Dr. Van was going to get some clarification on that for us.
All I could find is that chiropractors are not permitted in the Healthcare Act as it stands, okay? Your Practice Act does not allow that, okay? I can't
Okay.
say anything other than that. I think the issue is if you want to open the act and add that in, that's a risk that your LOTA can take, okay? I wonder, just out of curiosity, what you think is the benefit of it.
I'm not, this is coming from someone else, but I think part of the situation was chiropractor seeing people for chronic pain or back pain or some kind of, it was related to a pain. And I guess the chiropractor wanted to make the referral to OT, and that's where the question came up. So, and I just said that I would get clarification. Like, to my knowledge, that's not a medical doctor.
At this time, it's not permitted under the Practice Act for OTs.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the other comments that we were talking about regarding like the telehealth and the supervision, Dr. Van had previously mentioned to us as a committee that we are able to ask to send a selective email to all the OT practitioners to increase awareness of the Telehealth Act and to clarify a few things as we get questions. Kelly and Caroline, y'all get a lot of the bulk of questions, and y'all kind of see with some people, we get a lot of questions. I think most of our questions are supervision and continuing ed, honestly. But after some discussion today, if we feel like it would behoove the practitioners to have information about telehealth, so like even the fact that OT assistants can work under the Telehealth Act, I think was big news to a lot of people, and some people didn't understand that they could. I think as a committee, we're really going to have to address the supervision with telehealth. The face-to-face, the in-person, it gets super complicated. So that's kind of going to be on us with our rules and our regs, but, obviously not for us to solve today. But if in the meantime, we feel like it would be beneficial to send out an email that would just help people understand and make them aware. And then I think in the future, this laws and rules course that Ingrid was referring to earlier will also help remind people that there are things in place and resources available for them to turn to. Y'all's thoughts?
Darby, I have the telehealth act that was passed back in 2015 that I could share and just show everybody if you want me to.
No, that's up to everybody. And if y'all want us to email it to you, you want to look at it now. It doesn't really.
I think the biggest thing for both you and I was that Dr. Collada did. He clarified that the board considers the word occupational therapists in the telehealth bill to include OTAs, and that we didn't even need the Emergency Act to allow OTAs to practice telehealth, that they are allowed to practice telehealth.
But again, I think the most important thing we have to go by is telehealth is an adjunct to the good practice of occupational therapy. It cannot allow or suborn the bad practice of occupational therapy. So as Darby preceded these comments earlier, if you have to have in-person, on-site touching or what manipulation or whatever, then I think it has to be done. If the rules say you have to have an on-site visit, then you can't do that by telehealth. But I think anything else that you can do as using this tool to expand the practice, as long as it is the proper practice of OT, you're going to be in no trouble.
Yeah, and I think, that verbiage that I talked about earlier about, if it reduces the care or the quality of occupational therapy, then it's not appropriate. That kind of language and discussion needs to be included in an email that would be sent out, just to remind people that, like, hey, it is an adjunct. Like, it's not appropriate in every setting for every client, which is common sense, but I think it just needs to be reiterated.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll jump in and say also, I think that's important to say that only because if you make the affirmative step of sending out a specific email to everybody, alerting them to the fact that telehealth is allowed, it's almost as some people will interpret that as saying you're encouraging that, you're pushing that. And to some extent, in the appropriate context, you are, which is
Right.
great. But yeah, you ought to balance it with the caveat that says where, all the things you just said, just to make sure that they're not thinking that it's a free pass just to do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Patricia. I mean, the thing that I'm nervous about with doing that, though, is the gazillions of questions we're then going to get about the supervision. And we're not really prepared to answer a lot of those questions because it is kind of ambiguous right now.
Well, one thing, Darby, we kind of have to remember is the difference between a sixth visit and a care conference.
Right.
The sixth visit is not about supervising the CODA. A sixth visit is the occupational therapist reassessing the patient. The occupational therapist needs to make the decision on their own whether they best can reassess a patient in person or via telehealth. If the telehealth is going to reduce the quality of their reassessment of the patient, then they shouldn't do it by telehealth. And that's a completely separate thing from the patient care conference, which is where the OT and the CODA sit down at the prescribed intervals and meet and discuss the patient. And whether that's allowed to be done over a virtual platform, which is not actually provide the provision of telehealth. That's simply, are we going to allow a patient care conference to occur over a platform over a virtual platform instead of face-to-face in a clinic or face-to-face at a coffee shop or face-to-face in a parking lot or wherever people are practicing. So, the care conference is not really the provision of telehealth. That's a separate thing. And the sixth visit is on the OT. It's on the OT to know whether it's appropriate for them to reassess their patient at the sixth visit in person or versus some other way.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important for us to distinguish that in the email as well.
Yeah,
if we decide to send out an email.
A lot of mix up between the idea of the patient care conference versus the sixth visit. They're not the same thing and the goals aren't even the same.
Right, but I think people do that together just to, in lieu of time, like on that sixth visit, they go with them and they kind of do the reassessment and just, I get it, but I think people are just interpreting it to make it the easiest for them, which I understand, but I think distinguishing that if we do send out an email is very important.
Yes, I agree. And that every sixth visit, the OT needs to be making sure that the platform they're using for reassessing the patient is the most appropriate. It's their visit. That's their billing for that visit. That's the OT's visit. And they are the ones that need to just know whether they need to be in person with the patient or whether they can give appropriate treatment for that session over telehealth.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to change subjects, I'm going to make two things I want to comment to you if you're going to talk about the compact.
Okay. Yeah, that was coming up next.
All right. I don't have an objection to you going to do this kind of stuff. We need to read whatever law is proposed. And I know that this is the Pattern Act, which they're going to probably have to do. We would like to be able to make some comments that you need to know about. And one of the things is, this is going to be more costly than you think to individual licensees, okay? We see that in medicine already, in the compact for doctors. And one of the things that happens, we just had a case, had a really great cardiovascular thoracic surgeon in this state who many, many years ago got in trouble for medical records in another state and had a disciplinary action taken against him as a resident. And he cannot join the compact now because they have these things in the law that says you can never have had any disciplinary action. While it all sounds good, and it does have some benefit, the key operational concept here is that you will be changing for these people a different set of requirements than you will have. So a Louisiana graduate that wants to stay in Louisiana is going to have the rules that you know and utilize and are reviewing today. If this passes, there'll be a separate track to licensure that is different. And for example, right now, if you have a doctor who's not a citizen, we have to grant them the license, then tell them to prove their citizenship, and then either revoke the license, and that's a disciplinary action, or they shouldn't apply. So there's a lot of things in here that you need to think about. It sounds good, and you might want to put it on when you have enough time to really look at this seriously, because there are some pitfalls that we are learning about, and I would tell you that it sounds great, but the simple fact of the matter is there are pitfalls and you need to know about it. And I will not say anything else because I got to go down. I got to meet a lawyer right now. And I
Okay.
apologize for running out on y'all. I
No,
know
that's
this
okay.
panel gets you through the rest of it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Van.
you. Thank
Um,
you. Bye-bye.
So just to let y'all know what he's talking about, under number 3 for new business, the OT compact. So we were made aware, excuse me, that Senator Peacock is agreed to present the bill in the fall session. So he wanted to propose it. I don't know if y'all remember us talking about it in February. He wanted to do it in the spring, but because LOTA did not have a lobbyist, because they had to change lobbyists, Louisiana advised them not to do it, Senator Peacock not to, until they sustain their lobbyists and were prepared for it. So he is going to present the bill in the fall session. And the compact standardizes the procedures for OT practicing in other states to obtain a license to practice in our state, as y'all know. So it's not just, it's primarily used for telehealth practices. So again, it gets back to like supervision and things like that need to be in place. There are 21 states that have successfully passed the OT compact. And this is really coming down from, working with AOTA to get the model compact law language for revising our rules and regs. And obviously we can turn to some of those 21 states. But it's really like an LOTA decision. Like it's not our decision. LOTA moves forward with it, but we have to be prepared because obviously it affects the licensing. And then once it's approved in our state, a member from OTAC, or as they say, the licensing agency, will be invited to serve on an AOTA compact commission. And that's mentioned in this compact documentation. So
Who would be invited? I'm sorry, did you say a member of?
it's a member of the licensing board. So a member of OTAC.
Yeah, I
would
thought
be-
you said LOTA, but yeah, you said OTAC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I was trying to find out like who in Louisiana was on this commission, and they said they don't get appointed until the bill actually passes. So AOTA is aware, well, I don't know if they were, but they're now aware that this is happening in the fall. Because I reached out to, our contacts after talking to Jennifer, who's the LOTA president, who informed me that.
So LOTA is requesting that this bill be brought up. They want it.
I don't know that they're requesting it. I just think that they're not fighting it. So, I don't know where their stance is in particular, and I don't really know how much control they have. But Senator Peacock initiated it in the spring, and then they were able to hold off. So, I didn't really ask Jennifer's opinion. I think, we're just trying to help prepare for it. Like Dr. Van said, like it's going to change some things. It's going to make things harder. It's going to use up some resources and things like that. But I don't really know how much control we have over whether or not it happens. I feel like it's my responsibility to make y'all aware and give you the documents that I've can find and have been given so that we can just kind of understand it. I didn't see anything in it really that was much different. But this, supervision stuff is definitely going to come up because it's going to be primarily telehealth.
I mean, as far as OTAC, we don't really have any say. I guess I'm just a little bit confused about if the LOTA was opposed to it, wouldn't they be able to tell this Senator Peacock that they don't want it and not to introduce it? Or is he going to introduce it no matter what because he believes in compacts?
I'm not sure. I think he's coming at it from the angle of the Department of Defense. And so remember when we were, and I think that again, I'm just sort of basing it on knowledge that it's coming down the pipe anyway. Like the pressure is going to be there, whether it's this year, next year, regardless. And I'm just trying to keep up with LOTA on it to make sure that we are aware and prepared and like, what do we have to do? What's gonna happen for us as the licensing and the advisory committee for things.
Just in reading through it, the compact today, we already require the things that the compact requires.
Correct.
I don't think we're going to have to really change much other than that somebody from OTAC will now have to be a delegate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure that what Dr. Van said about the price going up for occupational therapy licensure, initial and renewal will definitely go up because there's money involved here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a member state can be kicked off if it doesn't keep up with the paperwork and data collection required of being a member compact state.
Yeah. So, I mean, most of, sending y'all that information was just to inform everyone. And then if y'all had any questions for me to bring to LOTA, I will try to get the information from some of the other states of how they've amended their rules and regs. But for the most part, when I did this for telehealth, a lot of the state's rules and regs are way shorter than ours, way less information, and way more ambiguous as far as like interpretation. So I don't know. And then it just takes time to update. So a lot of states were behind in updating like we are. So anyone have any questions, thoughts? Know anything about it? Don't know anything about it? Glenn, do you have any updates from LOTA that maybe I'm not aware of?
No, I just know that like right now I'm also helping like LOTA by being on I'm not a board member, but I'm on like the legal committee. And so like kind of just reiterating the same thing that you brought up, Darby, is that it was damage control for a while just to try and like deal with the issue of our lobbyist. And now that we do have a new lobbyist in place, we want to try and better prepare for everything from LOTA's standpoint to be able to kind of just to be prepared to be able to address everything that needs to be addressed by being able to introduce this, to be able to change whatever needs to be changed from the standpoint of making it formal. And so what we've been doing is like our specific committee, we have been trying to reach out to the presidents of other state organizations in the states that where the compact, got passed. And so we've heard from, I think at this point, we've heard from 2 other presidents of 2 other states of like what language worked and what was good for them and how it helped and how they were able to get passed. And so we're just kind of still like information gathering and trying to see like how we're going to word and phrase things. So we still have several other meetings, I think, to be had to be able to make sure that like we're doing the right thing. And Samantha, I think you pronounce her last name as Murmagas. Like she's the one who's kind of like head of the legal committee to be able to, who's like helping us stay organized and move forward in a good way. She's doing a great job. She's also helping in that regard. So it's still in process, I guess, if I'm going to summarize it. But we're aware of it. We're working on it, like to try and help. But I don't feel like Ingrid, whenever you felt like LOTA is like pushing the issue of a compact, like I don't get it. It doesn't feel that way. Like it doesn't feel like we need to have this compact done now. We're pressing peacock for this. Like I don't. My impression, I didn't get that impression. Now I might be wrong because I also just joined the committee a couple months ago, so I've been to like 2 meetings so far. But like it wasn't my impression that like we need to get on Senator Peacock to make this happen kind of
I guess
impression.
it just seems like, who is the Senator Peacock and why would he care? But, you know,
I honestly, I just don't know.
He has advanced all the compact legislation, all of the existing, the IMLCC, the nurses, every compact legislation that we have in the state, he's been the author of those. So he's their go-to guy.
He's the guy. All right.
Yeah. So, okay. So if there's no other comments about the compact, the telehealth bill. So this is again just sort of an awareness thing, and there's still huge question marks around this, but in speaking to the LOTA president, a telehealth bill that I sent to y'all was submitted by Senator Freeman for physical therapy that passed in the spring. And at the time it was being passed, LOTA caught wind of it and asked if OT could be also included, and it was too late for that. So they've requested for it to be duplicated for OT and submitted with the OT language in the fall, basically with the same parameters. They said everything like the billing codes and everything checked out, which when I read it, I didn't really see a lot of billing codes, but I trust what they're doing. But I don't really understand like if we really need to pass this telehealth bill. When it does, Dr. Van was a little weary about it because he said, you can pigeonhole yourself and you can make changes that you really don't want to. Like we're already allowed to do telehealth. We're already allowed, the OT assistants are allowed, even though that's been kind of unclear in the past.
I thought the same, Darby, until I actually read what you sent us. And now I see that the bill is not so much a telehealth bill as a telehealth reimbursement bill.
Yeah, it talks a lot about reimbursement, but
actually the entire thing is only about reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's not about them being allowed to do it.
Yeah.
It's all about mandating that Louisiana health insurers reimburse for physical therapy that's been provided over a telehealth format. I was kind of surprised that you could do that they could do that. But now that I see the language, I feel like, yeah, we would want to be in on that.
Yeah. But it's not just that it's reimbursed, but also like reimbursed at the same rate.
Yeah, that they'll cover it and that they'll cover it the same rate as in person.
Right.
So I see now that it's a completely different bill than what we are. All we have is permission to do telehealth.
Right.
And that's all PT had until they did this. And now it's about getting paid.
Yeah. I did like in the proposal though, how they mentioned about like modalities. that those obviously would not be reimbursed or should not be done via telehealth. So that I felt comforted by that.
Yeah.
And that was mentioned in there. But again, that's just sort of to make y'all aware that that would be submitted in the fall. Dr. Van, when we discussed it, did not have a copy of it. So, you know, his thoughts, like Ingrid's, could change because, you know, when she first told us that, we were like, why do we need this? But now we know it's more towards supervision.
Reimbursement.
Reimbursement. So he did say, like, if we felt the need, we could invite the LOTA president to come to our next meeting to discuss, but we can revisit that as, you know, since we now know it's more reimbursement thing. So again, that's just for y'all's awareness and to keep y'all updated with kind of what's going on legislatively that could affect our practices.
You said you sent a document?
Yes. Did
It
y'all
did-
not get that?
I don't know. When did you send it?
That was on that cloud share link.
I think it's on the cloud share. I didn't send it. I sent it to be sent, and I'm pretty sure it was there when I looked this morning.
It's all in the
Okay.
same
I'm
80
sorry. I was
pages.
thinking like,
I think it's the last thing, Carolyn.
I got you. I
Page
thought you
78-ish.
emailed us a document. I got that. I thought there was something else. I'm sorry.
No,
I think it starts on page 76.
I can email that separately if you want, so it's not in the cloud share, so you could actually like download it and have it in your records, if you'd prefer it that way.
That's okay. I thought you were just
Okay.
talking about a different document
No,
that you
sorry.
emailed. I'm sorry.
We're still playing the let me make sure this is okay to share game every time we want to send y'all something. Trying to see where it starts. Okay, it's going to start on page 76.
Yeah.
It's not super long, but it you know, it basically is reimbursement driven. Okay, so any questions about that before I move on to the last one of the school system direct access? Okay, so so this was sort of brought to my attention a while ago. A local private New Orleans clinic owner is working with a lobbyist on her own, so it's not LOTA's lobbyist, to write legislation allowing for direct access in the school system. And per our current regs in section 4903, under the definitions, it says that prevention, wellness / education doesn't need a referral, and it should qualify for educationally relevant services, which is how OT is defined in the school system. So again, I'm not sure where this private practitioner is coming from, like in the rules and regs, as we all know, are up for interpretation. Like, doesn't necessarily mean that the school system needs a referral, or does it not, since it falls under education? Anyway, LOTA sort of jumped in and kind of held it off, but we're gonna have a meeting that I was invited to with this OT, our current lobbyist, her lobbyist, and the LOTA president for further discussion. Because I'm not sure if she's coming at it from a stand of reimbursement.
One of the comments I made about some of the things that you sent me was regarding preventative, preventative services, and using the word education there and then not defining what you mean by education there is probably the gray area that this person is operating in. And so if you're going to have preventative or wellness or education to be provided that is not also considered direct occupational therapy services, then I think that you need to have either use a different word, education, there, or you need to define what a non-occupational therapy based education service is, so that somebody who works in the field of education and does occupational therapy, so that there's a clarification there that those are two different things. I know that that's what the intent is, but if you use the same word and then then leave it up to the person who's providing that service to define the word, well, then she has the permission to move forward. If I feel like
Right.
I might be wrong there, but like that was a note that I made.
Right, and that's something that'll come up when we get to that.
Darby,
Yeah,
excuse me, in our current definitions in the rules, it says education is an intervention process, da, da, da. This does not include school-based occupational therapy. So that's probably where it's, because like it defines it there.
like in the definitions, it says that
Right.
it's not school-based.
Right.
Yeah. So she's trying to get direct access just for school system.
It really is confusing. When Darby and I met with Dr. Van the other day,
Mhm.
he said, it says education related. That means that the school-based therapists already can work with the students because everything they're working on with the students is related to them, improving their performance at school. It's education related service. That was his perspective on that.
Brenda, where did you find that you just referred to?
In the cloud share document, it's page 22 in the rules.
Uh-huh. The original one that talks about it is section 175 in the beginning, but let me go to 20. What did you say? 20?
So it's page 22 in the cloud share document. So
Okay.
it's in the section of definitions.
Yeah, but the wording,
The definition of what?
education for the word education.
Yeah.
But in the rules, or I think he was looking at
Section
attack laws.
175.
Huh?
Section 175 in the beginning.
175. What page of the big document is that?
I don't know. I just flipped from it because I'm trying to write this down too. It's at the very beginning. Like we went over it this morning.
Where it talks about education related preventative and wellness and stuff?
Yeah, that's where he got that. Right there, where it says, okay, so it's on page 12 of the cloud share or 2 of the actual document, close to the bottom, prevention, wellness, and education related services shall not require a referral. But we didn't loop back to the definition of education.
Not
No,
that on.
in that section, I don't see a definition of education.
No, there's not, but it uses the word education. So you
Right.
see where it says prevention, wellness, and education related services. So that's where it's
Right.
gray.
And right.
Like education
know in-
versus education related services.
Right. And I know when I was working in mental health, we always interpret, and again, our rules are set up for interpretation. We interpreted that like prevention, wellness, education, all as like one clump of services. If you're just providing education on coping skills or education on self-regulation, that was different than providing occupational therapy to give you a specific skill.
Yeah. So again, it's gray. And like Glenn says, we're
Darby, could you share the screen with where you're at? I don't see where you're at in terms of the part about prevention, wellness, education related.
okay. It's on page 12.
I know, I'm on page 12. It's nothing but definitions.
Look at occupational therapy definition.
Uh-huh.
And it's
right there. Okay.
prevention, wellness, and education related services.
Services.
That's what he looked at when he was talking to us and said she would, by this stuff, she would be able to provide it without a referral.
He was actually looking at our laws, not our rules.
I'm sorry. It was
Section 4A. But it says the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's where he said that education related services meant school system. That's how he interpreted that.
Right.
So as far as Dr. Van is concerned, occupational therapists already have direct access to treat their clients in school systems.
Yeah.
no, I'm not interpreting that way. I'm just saying that like that could be a window into somebody else. Okay.
No,
yeah.
we agree.
Believe
We
me,
agree.
we know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we had so many discussions about this already. And when when he told Darby and I that, like it was a matter of course. Well, yeah, it says right there, it's education related. So yeah, that they can work in the school system. They don't need a referral. And we're like,
Again, it's interpretation, right? So
Right.
I mean, I didn't even know what to say, because once he said that, I was like, okay, like, is LOTA interpreted? Do they understand this? Like, do I call this like this person who's working on this legislation to do it? Like, it's crazy.
Well,
I will.
does
I will say,
anybody
though, that
understand it that way?
right. No, nobody does. I mean, obviously,
No.
we can clarify it ourselves within our rules. That would be probably job one, you know, when we get to it. But we can't does this mean that we stop this or attempt to stop this person from opening the Practice Act to get direct access in school systems when technically we apparently already have it, and we
I
would
guess
risk a lot.
that's the biggest issue right now, is this person trying to push this legislation through. And I think that's where it's causing friction with LOTA, is that it's forcing the Practice Act to be opened when LOTA's not prepared for it, when we're not prepared for it. And then it misrepresents who speaks on behalf of occupational therapy. Is it this lobbyist that's been hired by this, by this one specific person? Or is it the lobbyist that's been appointed by LOTA? It muddies the waters there greatly to see like who has the right to do this.
Right, but anybody does. And fortunately, our new lobbyist worked at the same place that this lobbyist did, and it was brought to his attention. Otherwise, it would have been done without LOTA's awareness.
And Dr. Van reiterated everything that Glenn just said, that it is dangerous to open the Practice Act, that it definitely would let people jump in. So, I mean, do we know who this person is? But they maybe contact, maybe they ought to draft an email and send it to LSBME that Dr. Van and the lawyers could reply to, explaining that we already have education related without a referral.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the next wisest step of like, I can't remember the date of this meeting, and it's coming up. Is I guess for me, I don't know, to also invite Dr. Van maybe, or just bring it there for I think it's August 24th, so it's like next week. Because if it's based interpretation and she has it in writing, then maybe she doesn't need. Or my other question would be, is this for reimbursement purposes? Because if she's a privately owned clinic and she is seeing kids in the school system, her, and say she's billing Blue Cross as an example, like they require a prescription, but if it's in our rules, is she not? Like, I don't know the angle she's coming from, or maybe she's just interpreting our rules to say that we need it. And I don't know what the push is to like start legislation to do it. And so that's kind of one of my intentions at the meeting, is to get clarification of, is it reimbursement driven? Is it access driven? Because her initial argument was that the kids don't have the resources sometimes to go to the doctor, or their doctor appointment, it takes so long to get a well visit or to get a prescription. So she kind of went in it in the original document that I read, that it was really based more on not having access to the kids and the kids not being able to get the service.
I can attest to that. That's a big issue in the school system.
Yeah.
There would be many kids, because I never interpreted it like that. Because Kathy Davis said, no, you can't. That's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about educator related. It's talking about like if you were to educate.
Right. But it's interpretation.
Yes, an interpretation. So anyway, long story short, trying to get doctor's orders for schools, kids in the school system is hard, because it's really up to their parents to take them. And if they don't have that kind of resource, then you're kind of, they're left. And so you can't serve them.
So do you think if we
I think my interpretation would be education about occupational therapy in the school system would be educating the parents that occupational therapy services are available to their children to be provided in the school system.
Yeah.
Well,
like That's how, that's what the education, in the sense that I think we all intend it to be. That's how it would be
But
laid out.
also, OT in the school system is very consultative.
Can be,
Yes.
can
Can
be.
be.
They
Can
want
be.
it, they want it to be very consultative because it's something they want to be carried out every day.
And indirect.
There.
Right.
And so in that sense, how we did it when I worked in the school system, you could, evaluate and all those things. And then we'd write in the IEP that they would receive services with a doctor's order. But a lot of times it was just to bill Medicaid.
Right.
To circle back to the situation, I think if there's a way to get Dr. Van and to like bring somebody else into the situation, I think the most prudent course of action is to slow it down, is to like slow down the process that this person is trying to push through. Because if they're successful and they able to like open it, then it's a whole another can of worms that now could be really problematic. So I think the more kind of prudent roadblocks that we can put in there, because it feels, I don't know this person, I don't want to speak bad about this person, like I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that like they're doing things on behalf of children in school, and that's their primary motivation. But if it's coming from a single source and it's that aggressive and it's not beneficial to the profession as a whole in the state, then any other way that we can kind of politely and professionally like slow it down, I think that would be the best way to handle that situation.
Glenn, do you know if this person's going to be at the LOTA meeting on the 24th?
No, she will be, because I'll be there. It's with her.
Okay, yeah, I was planning on, that was the one we were both going to try to go to. I just didn't know that she was definitely going to be there. Well,
No, it's with her and her lobbyist and our lobbyist and the LOTA president.
Okay. I thought it was a regular LOTA meeting.
No. It's specifically to address this.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, I didn't know about that. So
yeah,
we got to start at that meeting by simply telling her how Dr. Van interprets.
Right. No, I will for sure. I mean, I think the thing about it is, when I was called into it, it's, Ingrid knows this because she sees the struggle with this, is like, I get these phone calls and asked my interpretation on behalf of OTAC, and I'm not really allowed to just off the cuff, like give things like that on our behalf. And so the proper way is to email the committee for us to come up to discussion. And they don't like to hear that because our meeting, was months away at the time. So luckily this meeting was after this and we could talk to Dr. Van about it, but I was not expecting him to have the interpretation that like an education related services does not need a referral.
Right.
And that's his interpretation. So he's like, if it's in a school system, we don't need it. And,
Right.
but even that though, I mean, because I would hope that she would understand that even though like physical therapy has direct access, the payer requires the prescription, and that would still override us having direct access. So again, I think
that's a separate issue for her. That's for her to figure out if she wants to get paid.
Right.
But yeah.
But it's not going to solve all the problems, is basically, so it's like Glenn said, just awareness and education and slowing it down to make sure like we're all on the same page. So.
Okay, I know I have got to go. I don't know.
Yes. So I just need to make sure there's no public comment about the clarification about the chiropractors and the referral source and then the fall legislation.
There's no public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. So Ingrid, the only thing that's on there is the AOTA state regulatory meeting on ethics, and then there are trends that you want to discuss about the ethical complaints.
That'll only take a second. So Darby and I were on AOTA state regulatory meeting where ethics were discussed. So just gonna throw out the trends across the country of ethics complaints that are coming up by OTs and about OTs. By OTs, the ethics issues that are being raised the most are productivity, still pressure to achieve productivity, and they feel like clashing with their ethical responsibility to their patients. In terms of complaints about OTs, there's been complaints that clients becoming too attached to the OT or the OT becoming too attached to the client and not discharging in a appropriate timeframe. There has been an increase in sexual misconduct complaints, primarily between occupational therapy faculty and OT students. Employers across the country are charging occupational therapists with patient abandonment for quitting, even if they give notice. That's been a trend, apparently. Even if they are giving 2 weeks notice, the employers are complaining to various ethics boards that the OTs are abandoning their patients. And that was it. That was fast. Just wanted to bring y'all up to speed on what we learned there about the trends.
Surprising? Anything?
The thing about the faculty and the sexual misconduct I was dismayed about.
Yeah.
Very dismayed. Obviously, I was not surprised about the productivity being the biggest ethical issue facing OTs.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any public comments regarding the ethics?
No public comments.
Okay, so the last order of business is just the NBCOT presentation has been moved to November 11th due to our changing of the dates due to quorums. And again, I will remind them that we allotted in our last meeting that they have 30 minutes. So if y'all have questions for them, that would be the time to bring it. Obviously, they're very open. I contact them all the time, like I know them very well. If we have anything that we need to discuss before. And then just for your awareness of the future meeting dates. And luckily the legislation passed so that we can do it by Zoom. So although they are abundant, like monthly, it's really to get us through the rules and the regs. And so we should have a lot less on the agenda other than the rules and the regs. So, you know, being familiar with that document, making your own notes, will make it go much quicker. So any questions or comments?
The only date that we're able of doing is the September date.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? It broke up.
The only date that we are available, that Dr. Van is available, is the September date.
Okay, Ingrid, wasn't it our impression that he was available for October, November?
Yeah, we had cleared those with him originally, yeah.
Did something come up where he's not available now, Jacinta?
The October date, we actually have another advisory committee meeting, and I'm not sure about the November meeting.
Okay, so we will work on that.
Meeting once already in order to accommodate Dr. Van. So I thought this was the one he could do. As far as October, yeah, that had already also been vetted, but we'll go back to the drawing board.
Okay, well, definitely.
Is November not Veterans Day, and is that going to affect our friends at LSBME that join us?
Maybe is that it?
Is that Veterans Day?
It is, yes.
It's Veterans Day.
So that must be the problem. Okay.
Okay.
The November date is Veterans Day.
In September 16th, is that correct?
No,
Yes.
yeah.
September 16th, yes.
And no, October, what was it?
It was October 7th, but now we may have to change it because of Dr. Van's schedule.
Right, okay, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, so Ingrid and I will work on the October and November, but definitely mark down the September 16th because that should be primarily rules and regs. So hopefully we'll get farther.
And that'll be 10:30 again?
Yes. Yep, that's per Dr. Van. All right. All right.
Probably.
So, I'm sorry.
I've got 6 people waiting outside my door.
I know. Yes, we're ready. So we can officially adjourn the meeting at 1:32.
Okay, great. Thank y'all so much. It's good to see everybody.
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry it took so long, guys.
All right, nice to meet you guys. Thanks.
Thanks.